Hey guys, Technomentary here with a video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be doing a head-to-head comparison between the new iPhone 12 Pro and the previous generation of iPhone, the iPhone SE 2020 edition. In this video, we're going to talk about the hardware, the software, and if it's worth upgrading from the iPhone SE 2020 edition to the new iPhone 12 Pro, so stay tuned. But before we go ahead and get started, if you guys are new to our channel, we do a lot of tech news, reviews, and giveaways, so make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you guys haven't checked out the unboxing video of the iPhone 12 Pro in detail, make sure you guys check that video out as well. So let's dive into this review for you guys today. So if we compare the iPhone 12 Pro with the iPhone SE, here as you can see right off the bat, of course, the Pro is a bigger phone, and the SE here, as you know, it's sort of a spin-off from the SE they released in 2016. So Apple decided to release mid-release. This one was released in April 15th, so mid-April, and this one in October, which is the regular time frame to release their flagship phone. So the iPhone SE isn't quite a flagship phone, some might consider, but the iPhone 12 Pro definitely is. So let's really take a look at these two phones. If we take a look at the back, as you can see, of course, the iPhone 12 Pro, which starts at $1,000, has your triple camera action going on, with iPhone SE only just has one single 12 megapixel camera. So 3 camera versus 1, of course, that's going to make a big difference in photography. Also, the other thing you're going to notice along on the iPhone 12 Pro is this black dot. It's actually a sensor for LiDAR, a sensor which allows better autofocusing, and it allows it to zoom much better whenever you're doing photography. It really makes a difference. So if you take a look at these two other conditions of the phones, you'll notice the Apple logo, of course, is at the center, which Apple on their newer devices started to do that, where in the past it would be a little bit upper in the upper section of the back. And then the other thing you'll notice here, of course, the color difference between these phones. This is the gold one that I have, is the iPhone 12 Pro, and the product red, which is the special edition. You have this product red trademark on there as well. So let's talk about the colors as well. You know, the iPhone, both of these iPhones come in most of the standard color that Apple releases every year, and that is, you know, you have your on the iPhone 12 Pro, you have your gold, your space gray, and silver edition one, and then the new special color is specific blue, and then the iPhone SE comes in your black, red, and white. So there's different variations of it, but essentially those are the color choices you get between these two devices. Let's take a look at a little bit more up top of the edge of this bezel. As you can see, of course, if we take a comparison side by side, you know, the iPhone SE is definitely a smaller bodied phone, but in terms of the weight, if you really compare the weight, it's pretty not noticeable, although the iPhone 12 Pro is supposed to be slightly heavier. They're around the 5 ounce, mid 5 ounce range, so you can't really notice it to a regular user. Of course, if you want to get to the technicals, you'll notice that the iPhone 12 Pro weighs a little bit more than the iPhone SE. If we take a look at the actual side-by-side comparison of the bezel, as you can see on the iPhone 12 Pro, the bezels are pretty much edgier versus the rounder one, the iPhone SE. So that's one thing. So this is like popping out versus the flat. The iPhone 12 Pro, for some reason, Apple decided to go back to their iPhone 5 or the 5S design, where this is, if you remember, this used to be the design of the iPhone before iPhone 6 was released, where they start to go with the rounder edges. The other thing you'll notice here, the SIM card trays are on the different sides. The volume up and down and the silent button are on the same side here on the left side, but then on the iPhone 12 Pro, they moved the SIM card tray right here. And then if we take a look at the bottom charge port, not much has changed. Still uses the same kind of charger and such. But with the iPhone 12 Pro, of course, you have the mega safe wireless charging that Apple has released. And then if we take a look at on the other side here, on the side where the SIM card used to be for most devices, on the right side is where the iPhone SE is. And on the iPhone 12 Pro, you have this new sort of spot here, which is available on the US edition. This is actually the 5G antenna or M wave that's been released on the of iPhone 12 Pro to support 5G. So that's the device that is there. And if we take a look at these two phones, we already have them powered on, ready to go. And if we take a look at the display itself, of course, both of these phones have slightly different display technologies. You have the iPhone 12 Pro, which has the OLED one, versus the iPhone SE, which has the LCD one. So it's slightly different, of course, display type, and of course different size of display. As you see right here, you have the iPhone SE, which Apple decided to go away with the iPhone X models above, but then on the iPhone SE they decided to bring back the home button and the top layer as well. So if you missed the home button and don't want to upgrade to the newer series with the whole Face ID and such, iPhone SE is your latest go-to phone, of course. And then the iPhone, as you can see here on the iPhone 12 Pro, up to from top down to bottom, you're gonna have the full display. So how big are these displays? So you have a 6.1 display on the iPhone 12 Pro versus the 4.7 display. So those are the size, if you're really comparing the size. And the actual display type you have on the iPhone 12 Pro is called a Super Retina XDR display versus your Retina display. So that's kind of the technical terminology between it. Of course, you see a phone that's, a full screen versus your home button in the top notch. So that's the big difference you'll notice. The other thing you want to consider is the nit. So the nit is the brightness peak of these phones. The iPhone 12 Pro astonishingly has 1200 nit versus the iPhone SE, which has around 625 nit for brightness. So that's the quality of brightness you're getting around these two phones. The other thing you want to compare when you talk about screens is the ratio, screen to body ratio. On the iPhone 12 Pro, it's around 86%, where on the iPhone SE, you're dropped down to 65% because of the home button and the top display area. So that's a screen to body ratio, 85% versus 65%. You're going to kind of notice the difference if you're a person that cared about the resolution or the actual display real estate between these two devices. Let's talk a little bit about the camera itself. Camera is a really important piece of the iPhone because of amount of things, people buy the iPhone, is one of the reasons is the camera display. As you can see here on the iPhone 12 Pro, the first time Apple has introduced Dolby into the mix, which allows you to record a cinematic quality videos. And as you can see, you're able to go up to 4K 60 frames per second. Similarly on the iPhone SE, you do the same thing as well. You're gonna also notice your typical photography mode and portrait mode that's available on your iPhone 12 Pro. The iPhone SE doesn't really isn't too far behind in terms of your camera quality. You don't have Dolby, but you're able to still record in 4K, as you can see, in 60 frames per second. So you're not losing much on it. Of course, it's a single versus your triple lens, which on the iPhone 12 Pro, the triple lens, you're able to record an auto zoom up to 4 times. And the night mode on the iPhone 12 Pro is really astonishingly well done on the iPhone 12 Pro. So if you're looking for particularly for upgrade in terms of your camera lens, you most likely want to go with the iPhone 12 Pro, just because 3 definitely beats 1. When you have 3 megapixel versus 1, of course, you can't really top that. So that comes down for the actual thing. Let's talk a little bit about the battery. So the battery life is another piece which makes these phones great. So how much battery life does these phones have? So if you talk about battery life, one thing you talk about is video playback, which is the most important part about your iPhone's battery life. That's how you're able to check it out. So if you talk about video life, if you're looking specifically for the video life of these phones, they have a watch time of, on the iPhone 12 Pro, 17 hours versus 13 hours on the iPhone SE. So 4-hour difference. Of course, the iPhone 12 Pro has a bigger size battery than the iPhone SE, and that's going to make noticeable if you're a person that is glued to their phone or using your phone all day and you want a battery life just a little bit bigger. iPhone 12 Pro might be the choice that you want to pick. Of course, a bigger phone does require a bigger battery, hence why you have just that amount of size and battery. The other thing, of course, both of these phones does allow you to charge wirelessly. With the iPhone 12 Pro does have support for Apple's proprietary wireless charging, the MagSafe wireless charger, but the iPhone SE can also charge. If you have a third-party wireless charger, you can use that to charge wirelessly. So wirelessly wise, they both charge it because of their glass and then the back on this one as well. So that's where you have for the battery of these phones. So let's talk about the actual iOS on these devices. So as you can see, both of these devices have been upgraded to iOS 14. Of course, the iPhone SE ships with iOS 13 because that was available at that time, and the iPhone 12 Pro comes with the 14 already supported, but there's 6 months difference between these. So most likely both of these iOS are going to be supported for about the same amount of time. So you're not going to lose much in terms of iOS supportability if you're thinking about which one is going to last you long. Both of the phones most likely are going to be supported for the same amount of length. Expect around 5 to 6 years, if not longer, on these devices. The other thing we really want to talk about of these phones is the software. So the software, in terms of the speed, comes in the form of the chip that is installed on these phones. So you have the A14 Bionic versus the A13 Bionic, which Apple kind of advertised the iPhone SE to be one of the fastest, or if not the fastest chip on a smartphone. And then they said the same thing with the iPhone 12 Pro. That came out. So you have 13 versus 14. Of course, these chips are phenomenal and they're powerful. Of course, Apple is really getting into this chip business, and this is where you're going to notice those chip is in terms of your speed that you're getting out of these two phones. If you play games and such, you're going to notice such different, like heavy graphic games such as PUBG, where you're really going to notice some of these differences that come into play. Of course, if you play some lighter games, you're not going to really notice much different. Like if you're playing Snake versus a game that's heavy duty, you're going to notice that difference. So in terms of speed, both rack up pretty well. You're not going to notice much different in terms of if you're looking for a phone that does a lot more speed versus lossless. They are about, most of the testers seen, pretty much as, fastest devices out there on the programming out there. If you're looking to do basic stuff, Amazon shopping or things of that nature, both of these phones are phenomenal. Can't complain. We haven't seen any noticeable difference in terms of what these phones can or cannot do. From a software perspective, pretty well built phones. Both of these phones, of course, does pretty much anything that you wanted. If you're doing a lot of browsing and such, you're not going to really notice much difference because of the software and the chip on these two devices. With the iPhone 12 Pro, is one thing you're going to notice is that it's enhanced supportability for augmented reality or AR that isn't quite possible with the iPhone SE. If you play games that have AR or any apps that uses AR technology, iPhone 12 Pro definitely comes in pretty clutch for that. And there you guys have it for most of the review. To conclude, in terms of whether upgrading to the iPhone 12 Pro is worth it from the iPhone SE, well, a couple things you want to consider is, are you looking for better camera? Then yes, upgrade to the iPhone 12 Pro. But if you don't have a very much big need in terms of your camera and photography, you might be fine with it. If you're looking for speed between these phones, are you going to get much out of in terms of speed? Probably not. Both are about the same. So the iPhone SE still pretty much head-to-head comparison still goes against the iPhone 12 Pro without much of it. And then the hardware and the software, if you take a look at it, both are pretty much equal in terms of they will be supported for a very long time, and you're going to be fine having the iPhone SE and not upgrading. Of course, if you want to drop that $1K versus that $400 phone, you have almost a $600 difference. Of course, the display on the iPhone 12 Pro, though at OLED technology, really costs a lot more for Apple to manufacture, hence why these phones are marked at the $1,000 base model. And if you're looking for storage or bigger storage, the iPhone 12 Pro does come in the 512 gig versus the iPhone SE, which only goes up to 256 gigs. So half of that. That's one other thing that's very noticeable between it. But from a software perspective, both of these phones go head to head, and upgrading, it depends really on what you're looking for. If you're a basic user, you might not get much out of the upgrade besides spending that $600 more on it, just getting a little bit updated phone. Remember, these phones are both released this year in 2020, and there isn't really much yet out of these phones that are different between these phones. Hopefully this video is helpful. If this video is helpful, please make sure to hit that like, and of course hit that subscribe button for future tips and tips on your tech. I'll see you guys next time.